G'day, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. We've had our first subscriber request, so I'm breaking with my schedule to bring you these next two tutorials. Vivek Kumar Pal has asked that I do an example for tag list views, card list views, and image camera handling, which is basically let's build Facebook. So we'll try and build Facebook in 2 lectures and we'll see how we go. Now I'd really like to encourage everyone to make a request if you have some need, but I will outline the rules. First, try and do it yourself first. Programming is problem solving, so by asking me, you're cheating. It's a lot more rewarding if you can figure it out for yourself, and being a programmer is not just about writing code, it's about finding other sources of code and solving the problem. In this case, I'm another source. 2, keep it relevant. If you want an example, then make sure that it extends to something I've already done. That way, more people will be interested in it. 3, I'm not here to debug your code. That's for you to fix. So let's get started with images and how to access the camera. Okay, so I've downloaded Xcode 9.1 final, and what we want to do is we want to go to source code and clone. Now I am downloading 9.2 beta and performance might be an issue. Anyway, get final UI collection view, clone that. Let's put it on the desktop. Let's run it and see what we come up with. We've got a build. It's nice to know that once the new compiler comes out, everything still works. I am so looking forward to getting a new Mac. Oh, there's a new bunch coming out at Christmas. Okay, after what seemed like forever, we've got our app running as we left it. So as you might recall, we've got a collection view and we've just got a label. If we click on the label, it comes up and we can change Audrey's name and some characteristics about her. And what we want to do is we want to put, perhaps make this cell a bit larger and put a photo of Audrey here that we can upload. So we're going to see a photo here of Audrey, and when we click here we're going to have a photo, and when we click on the photo we're going to access the camera. So that's basically what we want to do. So let's have a look at what we would need to do for all those things. So now I'm doing this off the top of my head without any preparation, so who knows what's going to happen. We need a data structure, and so we're going to need a variable, and we're going to call that the image. Don't call it image, and that is going to be, I believe, a type of UI image, and we will make it an optional. If we so when we click on this name, this is our view, our My View controller. So we'll go to our My View controller, and we're going to want to create an image view. We're going to give that a frame equal to CG rect, and we'll make it 0, 0, I don't know, 90 and 90. So we've created this image view space. We need to add it as a subview. View.add subview, and it's going to be an image view. Now we've got our setup constraints and setup values. So if we go to setup constraints, what are we going to do here? So we've got a name text that we were centering. We're putting it 200 from the top, and we gave it a height and width of that. So instead of, we've got plenty of space there, so instead of putting it 100 from the top, we'll make that 150, and we'll copy all of that and paste it, and we'll call this our image view, and we said it was 90 by 90, so let's put this at 25, and image view center X, image view top, image view height, image view width. So we want the height to be 90 and the width to be 90. From the top, we want it to be 25, and we want it to be center X. The item we're dealing with is, what do we call it? Simply image view. So it's going to be image view.translate auto masks, and the names are all going to be changed to IV, 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 IV. So it's got our constraints, and then constraint. Now we need to set up our values, and so now we set up an image with the UI image here. So we simply need to say image view dot image equals record dot, what do we call it, the image, the image. Now we have this problem that that this is an option that might not exist, so we need to have a placeholder. So if record dot the image equals nil, we will go image view image equals UI image. Is there a named placeholder, else okay, so I'm quickly going to create a placeholder image. Give me 10 seconds. Okay, so I've created a placeholder. I'm in my assets, in my little folder. We have a placeholder, so we just copy that across. We will rename it so it's got a low P. Oh. Did I copy the right one? looks better. So our placeholder is now being called, and so we run this. Set up our default helper initializers for our structure. So this initializer is automatically created by the compiler with all of the properties. So when we use it, we need to supply a value for everything. Okay, well, we've got our placeholder space. Our text is still not quite in the right spot, but we can push that down. Maybe I have set the wrong. Let's have a look. We're in my view controller. That part's definitely working. Setting up constraints. Name text field. Oh, I didn't actually change the value of top to 150 like I said I would. 150, 150. Okay, we're sweet there. And we're sweet there. Okay, so what we want, it's going to make this cell 45 by 55, so it'll be half the size of this space. And I'm not quite sure even what it was. Let's have a look. Did we actually set it? Well, then we set it to 44, so we're going to set it to 45. And what we want to do is we want to add an image view here on the left-hand side. So if we look at the cell, when we create a cell, we've created this. So we'll create let image view equals UI image view. Zero, 0, 45, 45. We will have to set up the view. So we'll go add subview, image view, and do we want that still to be centered, or do we want to push it across a little bit? Let's worry about that when we do the constraints. So we'll copy all the constraints. Now we set those to the margins. Image view, so it's going to be IV left, IV top, IV height, and IV width. So IV left, IV top, IV height, IV width, Now, it's going to be ImageView.left is related to the cell attribute.left, multiply 1, constant 0, so we're going to push it right up against the left. That's correct. Now the left one here, we're going to change that constant to be 45 so that it's 45 in, which is the width of the image. And that should set up our centering just a little bit to the right and perfect everything there. IV top is ImageView attribute.top equal to self top 0, IV height, ImageView attribute dot height related by equal to self dot height multiplier 0, 45. I hope that's correct. And width, ImageView dot width equal to self attribute dot width, and we'll make that 45. We've added those constraints, and so we've now added another little tiny image view in here, and in our view controller, where we are setting the cells, here we set the text, and what we want to do is type cell.ImageView.image equal to my data dot the image. Now I'm thinking what we really should do is we should always have a placeholder. So let's fix some of this code quickly. So in our default where we set things up, we will, instead of passing nil and making it optional, we will pass the UI image with the named placeholder. And then that way it's always going to have a value. We'll run that. What's it telling me that I've done wrong? Instance member, the image is type my data. Array. Index path dot row. Now that will work. There you go. So now we've got images here in our cells. Audrey's now reset, and if we click here, we've got Audrey's picture here. So now what we want to do is we want to click on this picture and access the camera. So the way to do that, what we want to do here is we need what's called a UI picker view, which allows us to access the camera, and it will display everything that's in our camera. But in order to pick up the click on this space, we need to add a tap gesture to the image. Now, just quickly, I'm going to show you how to do this in a storyboard. We don't have a storyboard because we got rid of it, but just quickly so you know what's going on. So I've got this storyboard, and we will, right, okay, so we've got a view controller, and we would normally, we put an image, image view. So this is our equivalent here. We've got our image over here, and then we want to get a tap gesture recognizer, and then you would just drag that on top of the image view, and it will create a tap gesture recognizer here, which you can then attach to some source code via an outlet just by control dragging in your so you would just let's get the right. My view controller, so you can just create an action there, and you know, my gesture. And that's how you would capture it in a storyboard, but we're not going to be using storyboard, so we'll get rid of that. That action, which we don't need. So what we do need to do is we need to add the gesture recognizer in code to our image view. So we create a gesture recognizer. Okay, so I was getting a couple of tiny errors from my cell. So when I created IV height and width, the two items should have been nil, not self. So that's fixed up those issues. Now, getting back to our tap gesture, or creating a tap gesture in code. So we just need to go let tap gesture equals tap gesture recognizer. The target will be self, and the action will be hash selector, and we'll just say handle tap. And then at the bottom, now because we're using hash selector, we need to do at Objective C function handle tap, and we'll just put a print statement for the time being saying tapped out. So we've created our tap gesture, and then there's some, what we want to know is how many taps do we require? Well, we need one tap. And how many touches do we require? We need one touch. So a tap is a finger hitting the screen, and a touch is how many fingers are hitting, where we need one. Then we need to add our tap gesture to the image view, because we only want the taps if we're hitting the image. And then we need to make sure that the system is sending us interaction messages. So is user interaction enabled? And that of course is true. If it's false, you can tap to your heart's content and nothing is going to happen. So now if we tap on the image, we should now get this little print statement saying tapped out. and we've got tapped out. Okay, so that's good. So now what we want to do is we want to bring up this, rather than bring out tapped out, we want to bring up the image picker. So now you've probably used the camera before, so you know that it brings up another window. So in bringing up another window, we need another view controller. So there's a special view controller, image picker VC, image picker controller that we want to create, and we go down to our handle tap. What we want to do is that what I called it? Image picker controller, picker VC. So I've just taken this out of previous code that I had. Image picker controller. So do we want to be able to edit the photos? We do. We want to access the photo library. The other option is, of course, to access the camera. The image picker controller media types, we pass this .photo library, and we want to create the delegate as the self, and it says we can't assign that because we haven't created the delegates yet. And then once we've set up what we're going to do with this picker controller, we want to present that modally so that it can be selected. Now, cannot assign type because we have to meet all these delegates. So let's create a new group and call it extensions. There, and we'll create a new file which will be a Swift file, and this is going to be my view controller plus UI picker delegate, and we will import UI kit and create our extension of my view controller, and then picker controller delegate, and probably ask for a data source. Out. Okay, so in our extension we also need to include the UI navigation controller delegate, which the picker controller is going to be using, and to comply with either of these I don't think we need anything. So we click, there is our photos, and these are of course the default ones that come with Apple, nothing to do with my photos. And then we can select one, we can edit the photo because we chose editing, and we can choose that image. Now what we need to do is when the picker controller comes back, we need to get the image that's been selected, and then we need to put that into our database and redisplay it. So how do we do that? Okay, so if we look at our UI image picker controller delegate and jump to the definition, you can see that there is this image picker controller, and there is this image picker controller did cancel. Now they're both optional, so our code was running before, but we actually want both of these. So let's copy them both. go to our extensions. So if we've cancelled, well, we don't want to do anything. So we just want to dismiss animated true completion nil. So basically, if someone has cancelled, all we want to do is get rid of the picker controller, which is not surprising. A little bit more complex with the image picker controller. Did finish picking media with info, and then it returns us this dictionary, info as a string and any. And again, from code I've previously used. We've got this selected image from the picker, which is an optional UI image. And what we do, if we go, we want to get the edited image from the info UI image picker controller edited image. And if we don't have an edited image, we want to get the original image from the UI image picker controller original image as a UI image. And so we set our selected image from the picker as either the edited one or alternatively the original one that's been selected. And then we want to add this to our database. So it's a little bit trickier here because it's called wish image. Hang on for a second. We'll go back to our view controller, and I think it's called the image, wasn't it? Or maybe it's ImageView. So in our extension, ImageView.content mode and ImageView.image, and then what I've done is I've got a resize function, but let's just take that out for the time being. And our image view is going to be equal to selected image. Now that is automatically going to scale with selected scale aspect to fit. So whatever image we've selected will automatically be scaled into the available space on the screen. There you go. And we'll pick a moment. Now this is not ideal. I might cancel that one. Give us a larger one that's going to give us a square. Choose that. So we've got a square space. So we've got our image being displayed. That's good. Now what we do need to do is we need to save this image when we save, and then this image could be 4.5 megabits or something like that. We probably don't need that just for a simple list. So we can resize this. So I've got some code on how to resize the image. So I've got this resize image function, which is just a global function. There you go. So this global function, I'm just going to put here. So what it does is it takes the image that you want to resize and the new width of the image that you want, and then it returns an image. It calculates the scale basis based on the width, and it creates a new height based on the width, and then it calls this UI graphics begin image context with the new width and height, and it draws that, and it ends that image context, and then it returns the new image. So this image context is basically a view that's off screen that allows you to write to it without actually displaying anything. So it's a screen that's in memory, without you actually having to draw it to the screen. So this where it says selected images, we just want to call resize image, selected image, and we want it to be 90 because that's the width here. Missing arguments, yes, okay. So image, new width. Okay, and then if we go back to our saving, so we've got our save record and our cancel record. So we've got a record that we have been playing with up here. So in our extension, when we get our image, we also want to put record dot the image equal to ImageView dot image, and then our saving, etc., should save everything back in our database, cancelling, etc., and that should then display in our list. So that looks good, and we will save. And now our save button is not doing anything. Okie dokie. So what my good friend has done is landed me right in the middle of what appears to be a bug in Xcode 9 to do with image pickers. Okay, so we'll run the code. I'll show you the bug. Okay, so the bug is that when we select an image, save doesn't, we lose our menu. And what we're doing is we're getting this permissions problem down the bottom here, discovery errors encountered while discovering extensions. So this is what you do. If you've got bugs, you copy the bug, you plug it into Google. Okay, so you put the bug in, and many people have got this bug. They've had it since the beta, and they say try all these different things. And one thing I've done is I've put in this check permissions, and another thing that the app didn't do, and which it's supposed to do, is it's supposed to check the info plist for these privacy settings. Have you accessed the photo library, this privacy photo? So what you should do is yes, what you should do is you should hit plus and then type privacy, and there's all these things which allow you to place a little message in. So you need to add this privacy photo library usage, and then it doesn't like, this is another bug, but anyway, oh, we're okay now. basically you need to put some text in here which gets displayed. And what the app is supposed to do is when you make one of these calls, it's supposed to say, or you're supposed to check, so I've got check permissions when we open up the window, and then at the bottom I've copied that source code that was nicely supplied by whoever that person is who responded, and so it basically checks to make sure that you've got access to the photo library, and that's changed recently. So I started off with UI Kit, and then in my old code I just needed to access AV Foundation, but now there's this Photos and Photo UI, so I added both of those so that this PH photo library and authorization status would come up. And essentially what this will do is you call check permission, and it will say, it will do a check of the photo library and say what's our status, and the statuses are we're authorized, so you go for your life. If it's not determined, which is we don't know, then it puts up a request, which is that little pop-up that you normally see saying we would like to access your photos, yes or no. If you say yes, it says successful. If it's denied, it tells you there's a problem. If it's restricted, you might not have access to that particular album. But even with that, you still get this error. And then there were other suggestions about putting internal and Objective-C here and all this kind of stuff, and none of those were working either. So what I decided to do in order to complete the project is the following. When we dismiss the record, what's happening is we can't access the navigation bar. So what we're going to do is we're just going to save the record, and then we're just going to call the navigation controller directly and pop our single view controller, and that'll send us back to our collection view. So this is what it now looks like. So when we select an image now, it automatically goes back to the start, and as you can see, because we've saved the image in our database, when it refreshes, it's displayed on the screen, which is what our subscriber was looking for. Now, there is no specific Swift 4 code in this, so if you still have a version of Xcode 8.3.3, which was the latest version 8, that code should run without the need to, should run correctly without the need to put this pop view controller or save record field in here. And I will comment this as this is a bug fix not needed once Xcode 9 unknown is released. Okay, so thank you for bringing me into the mires of of Xcode bugs, but that is certainly showing you how to access your camera and how to use images and put them in collection views, which is what our friendly subscriber wanted. Next we're going to do, I'm not sure what they're called, tab, what did he call them? Requests, tag list views. So I'll be back with you shortly. Cheers. Okay, so we can access the camera, resize an image, and place all of that into our data structures and display it in a collection view. If you have any questions about the tutorial, then please leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter @SwiftAlmanac. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free, and check out our website at www.swiftalmanac.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.